Gaelic Football on Off the Ball.
With AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out #TheToughest for more.
All right, with the weekend that's in it, in terms of Gaelic football, there's no better person that we could think of to speak to than Brendan Devenney. Brendan, how are you?
Yeah, thanks very much. I appreciate that.
I'm looking forward to a good chat here. Tell me, things looked awful for Donegal along, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks ago. And now all of a sudden, with the second half performance against Clare, people are starting to wonder, Ballybuffet, Derry, that's not actually beyond the bounds of possibility that Donegal might be able to put in a performance and cause a bit of an upset. Are we doting?
I don't know. Obviously, you want to be positive, Ger. Just trying to think. I mean, maybe people think that Derry aren't maybe going as well as they were. And as you said, the Ballybuffet thing. I was thinking back. Mayo beat us in the league this year, Ger. Tyrone it was a final game. I think it was leading into the Super 8s at Ballybuffet. You have to go way back to 2010. I think down. So really, in 13 years. 2 games lost, so it certainly has its presence. Gerard, you have to think of how depleted we are still, and making a case for maybe say what Donegal players would get into the likes of that Derry side at the minute, back-to-back Ulster champions. And listen, they didn't play well against Monaghan, but Monaghan were probably sitting waiting to get at them and change their game plan. And Derry, still showed a lot of grit, I thought, in that game to go back in there. But you have to think we Donegal. I mean, listen, if you look at McBurdy, McHugh, Blangan, McFadden, Ferry, Mogan, the 2 O'Donnells not committing, not playing this year. Like, there's 8 players. 8 of them will be in that team if they're there. And I know everybody has to deal with an odd bits and player here and there, but they deal with 8. And of course, never mind Michael going away and the change of management, etc. So it's been a massive year of turmoil. I've never seen a year like it, Ger, with all the stuff, of course, with the academy and all that going on in Donegal. It's been such a strange year. So in the back of all that, I was uncovering a minor game for Highland here, and I heard the half-time score 6-3. And to be honest here, having seen Donegal in all their league games, I actually wasn't surprised. I thought Clare at home, you always think of Clare in the championship, we bit battle-hardened. I know they get roughed against Kerry, but that can happen against Kerry. And you always think they beat Roscommon last year, they beat Cork. I think we're in a bad place, and yet we outscored them 11-3 in the second half. And a lot of that came down to kind of your experienced core. And there, your leaders throughout the team really stepped up, I think, for Donegal. And I suppose that's given you that wee bit of hope going into this fixture on Sunday. They
do also seem to have pace around different pockets of the team. Is that fair? I mean, I'm basing this off only watching snatches of the team playing across the league, and as the league went on, we got to see less and less of them. But am I right in saying that they do have a bit of pace? Yeah, most of the young lads that have come into the squad will be pacey, yeah. If you're not pacey when you're young, you're going to be in trouble as time goes on, that's one for sure. But I don't know if we have anything really. I mean, Jamie Brennan would be quite dynamic breaking forward, and so would the likes of my names are going Ash and Gallen. You look at the pace we have around the team. I wouldn't say it's anything that dangerous. That's the likes of O'Donnell as well breaking forward. I think it's more like, as I say, Jerry, the likes of Patton, McGonigal, McCool, Thompson, McFadden. The team plays around the core, and you need those players in the middle to kind of control the game. And on the league there, we didn't really have our defence right or our attack right. So it just looked in that game that these guys maybe took control of it, and then maybe had the pacey players breaking in around that. I mean, Clare sat very deep in the game, reading into it, and kind of invited Donegal on them a bit. And I suppose Derry's tactics will dictate a lot of this, I think, at the weekend. If they decide to sit and play their normal game, they will allow Donegal a certain amount of possession, which will let Donegal grow into the game. And that just seems to be the way they'll play a lot of the time. If they really went at Donegal, maybe like Armagh did last year at Clonus, that's probably where the fear would come from a Donegal perspective. So I think Derry's tactics might allow Donegal to grow into the game. Because one of the big analysis points, that's why I was asking about the pace, was that Monaghan had really learned from the first game against Derry, where they had played their best players and hadn't kind of set up
to face this team. And that's one of the joys of this new system, is that actually there's loads of tape. The Donegal management will have had loads and loads of tape of watching this Derry side, and they know this Derry side intimately. So if there's anything about them, we're going to see it this week.
Yeah, and Ger, you mean like dropping McCarron and McManus? I mean, God, you know, two of Monaghan's great players at the minute. I mean, McManus, one of the greatest players ever played the game, but they're sacrificed because of this bloody running game we have now, that athleticism takes over in GA, and the quality now can be snuffed out by a guy going, right, you stand on him and you run up the pitch. I mean, in many ways, the way Rodgers and Murphy's scenario, I think that probably led to Michael stepping down, thinking, if I'm going to be targeted now by a runner that's going to come up the pitch, like, what am I doing? And that's what Derry did to Monaghan. So, I mean, Monaghan's key player that day, McInnesby, up and down. I mean, phenomenal performance, brilliant stuff, but I'm just really concerned about, where we're going in terms of the skill level and talents and the tactical setup, that we're really now sacrificing our best players, because if they're getting on a small bit, they're going to be targeted by a runner up the pitch. And all that is a very kind of negative side of the game. So that would worry me a small bit.
Is there no obvious way around that by just going more zonal and saying you're going to be inside forwards and it's not your job to chase back? I say that, right, and at the same time I'm also very aware of, like, watching Paul Mannion back in the right corner back position, and then 40 seconds later being up the pitch fisting a point, and you're thinking there are definitely some players who have the athleticism and the skill set to be able to do that, but like, we're talking about the absolute elite of the game in Mannion. But is there not another way you could have it'll be interesting to see if Mayo, for example, if a runner ends up marking Aidan O'Shea and he's just playing full forward, if he just plays full forward and Mayo say, well, okay, that's grand, but we actually have a zonal system, we know our defence well enough and we have enough responsibility to be able to deal with this.
Yeah, well, listen, we don't fault Roscommon for how he set up against Dublin. What are you going to do? It is the template. Look at Westmeath Armagh. Armagh sitting in with Westmeath keeping the ball out around them, Armagh at home. Like, this entrenched tactic that's in there, you can't actually fault some of the teams for doing it. But see what you're saying there about O'Shea, and if you look at Mayo, all their big games are Croke Park, and things tend to change at Croke Park, and the likes of your Dublins and your Kerrys and Mayos, for example, and maybe Galways as well, but Galway are quite happy to sit too. They tend to open up more, and they have got a second game them. So do Tyrone, really. Tyrone have a second game them. That's why people are crying out at Armagh. You look at some of Armagh's performances last year, and you're like, they've gone so negative into their shell that when you get to Croke Park, that doesn't work. So you've got these two sides to the game, which is very intriguing. And the teams that you're looking at could win all Ireland. I just mentioned the four of them for me. They all have got a second game them, and particularly Mayo, you'd say probably have their own game. They're probably the only team that play it on their terms and always seem to do that. They play the running game, which makes them very exciting to watch, which makes the Mayo story always interesting. And people are harding them about All Ireland finals. But my God, you'll enjoy a Mayo match. And that's why their fans keep going back, and the way there's such a buzz about them. And if you think of that, the Armagh last week at home, very unlucky to lose Ulster final, packed Armagh, crowd was silent because of Armagh's tactics. So I think we gotta probably weigh it up. Some of the teams that are on the way up, and as I say, I mentioned Roscommon, you can't really fault them. Derry now are back-to-back Ulsters playing that kind of tactic, but as we know then, Croke Park, it doesn't work. So you need a plan B, and I think you were starting to see a bit of that with Derry. They were trying to do the four inside, going right inside and stretching it and trying to create gaps. But at the same time, they are defending with the 15, and you have the brilliance of, we mentioned McManus, McCartney, McGuigan, right back. I mean, what a player McGuigan is, but he's back in his defence quite often, and he's popping up here and there, but we're probably losing so much on that. So I think we have two sides to this tactical, this terrible stalemate that we're in, Greg. You obviously have results, you have where the game is played, and then you have these teams coming up to Croke Park, and I think, listen, in fairness to Roscommon, you'd say they still did their job. They stayed in the game, which, they hadn't won a game in 43 years at Croke Park, which is absolutely phenomenal, a crazy stat when you think about it. So they were so close. Dublin seemed a wee bit off it. So it's just kind of marrying, I think, that type of defensive stalemate in terms of your attack and your defence. And I think it takes you so far, but it won't take you far enough. And we've seen that with Armagh with Derry in Croke Park last year.
Yeah, okay, so you've a top tier of contenders in your head then. Just give it to me again, the top tier who do have enough of a game plan.
But listen, I'm trying to figure out where Kerry's at, and I can't have that Mayo performance. You'd have to say at the minute, let's just take it on form. You'd have to say at the minute the two Connacht dudes, Mayo and Galway, are the top looking two teams. Now, listen, obviously, rewind that 4 weeks at Roscommon, do a job, Mayo. But again, Mayo, Roscommon at Croke Park, should that happen, where would you go then after Mayo will probably learn the lesson and the fast playing pitch? And we've seen obviously that happen a few years ago where Roscommon beat Mayo and Mayo absolutely tanked them at Croke Park. So you have that thing, Ger, of trying to suss out where teams at. Everybody now is really writing Kerry off, and I would say that's a dangerous thing. Surely there's a bite back in them. Whether beating Cork at home, I don't know. Listen, they lost that 29-year record again. What a record they have for them. It just shows you again the folly of the Munster Championship in terms of they open it up, Mayo go down there and beat them well. So I think, as I say, the Provincials are dead men walking at the minute. But where are these teams at? Just on current form, if you're trying to assess them, I would put Mayo and Galway at the top two in Ireland.
Do you think with Kerry and Dublin there's an element that they just aren't feeling it? That there's Croke Park is empty for their game, not empty totally, but it's not full for the game against Roscommon, the way it will be for a big game in a quarter-final, particularly if they're the second tier. If they end up in, if Roscommon outscore in their victories against Sligo and Kildare what Dublin do against Sligo and Kildare, Roscommon will top the group, and then Dublin will have a game, a preliminary quarter-final, and it'll be against a good team, and it'll be a full house for that they actually will feel the emotional intensity. I don't know, is this a good thing or a bad thing, but all of that team have all won everything that there is possible to win. Footballer of the Year, multiple All-Stars, a pocket full of All-Irelands. So maybe playing Roscommon in a game where there's not that much jeopardy isn't the thing that gets the juices flowing. Am I overrating that?
No, that's a great point. And we got to look at it. Say if it was soccer, I think that it works because you play. Listen, I've played both games. You play it at a certain level. You never had them kind of heights. Now, if you're talking about championship, if you look at league football, teams love the league because the pressure isn't on. There's different players out and then different fitness. And you win, you lose, whatever. There's a chance, When you come to championship, we expect bang. This is Gaelic football. This is attacking on the front foot. And this is another reason why the passiveness of those tactics really get in your head. You're like, what are we doing here? Players are standing up, waiting. You take him, the ball moves over, we shuffle across, we shuffle back. That's not Gaelic football. Gaelic football is supposed to be on the front foot. It's supposed to be attack, passion. Now, if you look at it, what you just mentioned there, it's very interesting. You can imagine that Roscommon dressing room versus the Dublin dressing room. No, they're up there, as I say, the pressure of this. The Croke Park has been such a bad place recently. They're on the way up. They've had a brilliant league, but they have to do it in championship, And this was, that dressing must have been buzzing before the game. The build up, all the Rossies up. Look at the Dublin dressing room. They must have been like, right, boys, I can imagine something pretty soulful in the background, just nice and mellow. Let's go out and play, boys. And you can't play Gaelic at that level, really. Now, when you're as good as Dublin, you can go through the motions and still win. Take Costello out of that. The brilliance of him in the day, and Dublin always seemed to have something like that. Take him out of it. Roscommon definitely won the game, and probably should have anyway. The missed chances he had in the second half, a couple when they could have pulled away. So I think that mindset, you're right. Then the big games will pull it out. If you look at Dublin's performance last year against Kerry in All-Ireland semi-final, that was the real Dublin again. Now you look at it this year, now obviously Mannion, McCaffrey, Cluxton, all these guys coming back, and you're thinking, obviously Colin was injured for that game too. So you're thinking, right, take that back, put that Dublin team playing that performance, put those four players in. Surely they beat Kerry. And I think if it went the extra time, they would have beat them. But surely they beat them. But the mindset, the overall mindset is the difference. And I suppose that's a massively difficult job for Desi Farr. He's probably trying to marry freshness with ambition to go and win and go and do it. And he's new young players in. But the core of the team, a bit like I was saying about Donegal, the core of that Dublin team have to be the drivers. And if they have all this behind them, it's just not humanly possible. I don't think they get up for every game. That's why I think it's not to get anything away from Roscommon, but they had the bit between the teeth, I think, and that's why that game was closer than a lot of people were expecting.
I think something similar is going on in Kerry in a way, in that they got ambushed a little bit by Mayo, and so now it's going to be more interesting. There's going to be a little bit more jeopardy for them as the games progress, and again we would expect them to be in a preliminary quarter-final as well. That's not to say that that's the right thing to do. You'd obviously much prefer your team to be flat track bullies, smashing everybody who comes into your house. And that's when those great teams were announcing their greatness. But there's no great team out there at the moment, I suppose, is the conclusion from this.
Which makes it very interesting. When I was chatting to somebody about this, when the stuff came up about the negative tactics, and Peter Canavan's bit out last week about the game and that, and people were saying, what are we talking about? We've won the most open championship ever. But that's an open championship. That's not talking about a lot of the tactics in the game, And I think it's brilliant. If you look at it for years, I suppose Dublin, who could beat them? You had one or two teams in there, and I'm not forgetting about my neighbours in Tyrone. All Ireland champions a couple of seasons ago. They still could have a part to play in this, because I think when they get to Croke Park, they have that, as I say, A and B side to their game. They can mix it. So I think that makes it vastly interesting. I mean, you're really saying there's probably 4 or 5 teams you think you could make a reasonable case to win All Ireland, and there's another 2 or 3 just outside of that loop, which actually makes things really, really interesting in terms of the whole All Ireland series. But you're right. I mean, we had this with the Super 8s a wee bit. It didn't seem like it would really hit the heights maybe at times till we got to a quarter final. And that's the funny thing about Gaelic, because while we're playing league and we get to this league, we all accept that, and we often have some very exciting league games, and they're played at a certain level, and that's kind of it. But when we hit championship, we expect it to be flat out, because we're still remembering the glory days of knockout championship. But of course that doesn't happen. So we're in this funny thing, I think, with this group stage in terms of how teams acquit themselves in it. And then when it gets to the big stages, and I think, as I say, the Dublin semi-final performance last year told you all, and that relates back to that point you made, Ger, that packed house in Croke Park, playing Kerry, then you see the best dubs, which is still there, I think.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the point, that these games aren't the games that we're going to look back on in 10 years' time and go, do you remember that opening round of the round robin where these two teams who got knocked out in the quarter, do you know what I mean? We're prisoners of the moment now, analysing the Roscommon. I actually think fair play to Roscommon, 100%. That's exactly what you should be doing when you're a so-called inferior opposition against superior. You keep the ball and you don't give it to them. It's like very basic. What's happening here is the introduction of the democratisation of everybody having tactics, and who the hell are Roscommon to think they're allowed to do that? Well, the Dubs have been doing this for years. What? Anyway, sorry, I got sidetracked.
No, I get you. I suppose, as we always say, the interchange and the pace of a lot of teams, they do it so fast that they don't seem as entrenched as some of the other teams. And again, when you think of Dublin, it's Croke Park. And again, just come back to the point, everything changes there. The pace and the ability to interchange. And quite often, the teams are playing. I mean, you think of the battles with Mayo in particular, they don't play that way. So you wouldn't have noticed Dublin playing it as much. They played it not to the level they would other teams. And Dublin, of course, got very streetwise since the famous 2014. And they sometimes, you would notice them sitting going, okay, if you want to sit, we'll sit and we'll do what you'll do. When we break, we're better at it than you. So you had all this going on in the background. Some of the Ulster teams will come up to play, and Dublin would kind of toy with them over time. But I think that's kind of levelled out. That brilliance of that Dublin team, certainly between some players stepping away, the age profile of some of them not being replaced by the same talent has dropped their performance enough to allow everybody else to have a fair shot at it. But certainly, you're right about Kerry. After last year, you looked at them, they looked with Paddy Tally going down there, they had that lovely mix of defence, tackling hard, aggression. They won everything they went down there. They weren't conceding goals. You had the absolute majestic god that is David Clifford, of course, the only man that played well against Mayo, really. So you're thinking, who's going to stop them next year? And then it all turns. So I suppose that's a good thing in the game. If Kerry were very robotic and were annihilating everybody, we'd be like, oh no, who's going to take them on now? So the fact that they've diffed a bit So it does make the whole championship very interesting.
You mentioned Tyrone. You think they're not done in terms of their influence. Obviously, there's a huge game against Armagh on Saturday evening. Or is that Sunday? Sorry, I mixed up the Donegal.
Saturday, yes.
Yeah. What is the truth about where Tyrone are? Because the core of the team who won the All-Ireland are still there. Like, I know a bunch of players left, but it was mainly subs and in an injection of extra stuff, and maybe a few of the players who've gone actually were key to that All-Ireland victory, and I'm underrating that. But the core of the team, and then you've got the transfusion of new underage blood from a successful team that's won All-Ireland in the under-20s. And I do think that they're one of those teams who could go in a row for 5 or 6 weeks, and all of a sudden they're in a semi-final and we're like, this is a 50-50 game against a really good team,
Yeah, well, listen, obviously Tyrone relegated Armagh there, and Armagh very lucky. Armagh could have very easily in that league been in the league final, and they got relegated. Tyrone that day, there's just something about Tyrone. I think they like playing Armagh. I don't think this is a game Armagh want at all. And particularly after the performance of last week, I think in fact Armagh's performance in here is bigger than the result, because they've got a one under their belt, but they played really poorly. I think Tyrone are definitely favourites going in this, and they're under pressure after losing to Galway. Frank Burns sending off, of course, the black card, and had a decent bearing on that, because I heard from my friends in Tyrone were flying going into this. Galway seemed to have a wee thing over Tyrone lately, and they're streetwise as well, and I think that they're saying that with the men down in that was the difference. But you're right, yeah, there's something about this performance. Now, Armagh have to give a good performance, and I think their fans could take that, even if they lost narrowly like they did in the league. You've got to see that bit of bite back, which we've seen last year when Armagh beat the two, beat Tyrone and beat Donegal, beat them well, playing some great attacking football, and we just haven't seen that from them since. And listen, I think Tyrone there, if you look at it, Canavan's in the background there helping out. You've obviously Logan and Dooher in there. You've Collie Holmes. You've Big Joe McMahon. There's a phenomenal team in the background of Tyrone. And you mentioned obviously the young Canavans coming through and McCurry, and I think McShane might be injured at the weekend and that. But for them at the back too, like Rian O'Neill being their main man. I mean, McNamee or Hampsey love playing against Rian O'Neill, and he in many ways carried Armagh. That would be a bit of a worry last year. They'll be looking at last week from his performance. They'll be looking to get about him. If he goes out the pitch, probably Milo will pick him up. So how they deal if they snuff Rian O'Neill out of the game? And I know Merlin came well in the second half, kicking 3 points in that, but I'm just wondering about the rest of the Armagh forward line. They just don't seem to be moving at a level high enough to outscore the likes of Canavas and McCurry's and these boys inside. I think Tyrone will come through this. And as I say, Ger, when you get to Croke Park, I think this Tyrone squad could still be very, very dangerous. I don't think there's any of them teams out there that they couldn't beat.
Yeah, and I think what's going to happen is we're going to get to Croke Park for quarter-final weekend, or maybe it's over 2 weeks this year, but we're going to get to the final 8, and we'll think that these 8 teams have a really good sense of what they're trying to achieve, and there'll be more games obviously, so the likelihood is that some of the squads will have significant injuries, but notwithstanding that, we'll have the 8 best teams in the country who will all have had the same number of games to get there, and who will all be under the same circumstances. There'll be nobody kind of coasting through an easy provincial championship, swanning in, having rested basically for the previous 3 weeks with a massive advantage. And I think that's the whole point. And then we start to judge the value of the group stages in filtering out the dross and giving everybody equal opportunity.
Yeah, listen, first year we're going to have to learn. Like, so many people are giving off. Oh, you play these games and you still have another one that I'm like, oh, let's see how it rolls, because otherwise, the dead rubbers could be the worst of the lot, in terms of teams trying to target something. And I know the team that finishes third are going to find it hard, but something could go against you in a game. You're still got a fighting chance. So listen, it can always be tweaked, I suppose, but you have people in there. If you looked at going into this, you had a big, I suppose, worries for Westmeath. Teams like Sligo, how they're going to equip themselves, even the likes of Roscommon going to Dublin. So we've already seen some brilliance. I mean, what that Mayo one and Kerry, I mean, that must have given them a massive lift. So there's teams in there. I think if you look at even the Sligo scenario, like if they can get a result, some kind of performance at the weekend against Roscommon, I mean, they're going into Division 3 next year. I mean, that's some preparation for them. And Westmeath looked like they're well set up, and I mean, you can give off on tactics all you want, but Desi Dolan looks like he's doing a great job there. I mean, they're 8 points up against Louth, and that can happen sometimes in Leinster and come back. So you're thinking maybe it should have been them getting in that final, because they looked like they were maybe better equipped than Louth as an overall team. So there's teams in there that will grow, and that's their job in there. They're not thinking about really topping the group or winning it or really thinking they've a tilted in All Ireland, but they're going to try and grow in there as a squad and then go into their league next year. Should it be, some of them teams that say are in 3, most of them are in 2, that they're trying to learn and grow. So I think everybody in there is trying to find a bit of progression, and I think teams are doing that. But yeah, when it gets to the knockout stages, I think then you'll see the real fire. The only thing I'd say in that, Ger, is obviously, and I don't mean to play up an Ulster thing, like Derry and Armagh, for example, have had a decent season before they've had this group stages, and maybe that has taken a bit out of them, which I don't think the other provincials maybe had that as much. So that's maybe a wee thing that could affect them.
But then we'd have to kill the Ulster Championship, and that's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, as I said, Jerry, I think the championships are, as much as Ulster we'd love to click on them, for the sake of the rest of them, sure, what are you going to do here? I think they're getting in the way. Now, if we really want to pursue these group stages, and Jerry, I hate to say it, because I love Ulster and the championship is phenomenal. Teams put so much, you get so much, I suppose, out of winning it. It's a massive thing. I mean, Derry is absolutely buzzing on the back of the back-to-back, been down for so long. It's a real mark in the season. I just don't see how it fits in with the whole thing, because if you look at some of the other championships, how they're, and the example of Mayo going down beating Kerry after 29 years of not being beaten by anybody really in Munster, it shows you that there's not a lot of point in that. And if they're able to kind of cruise through it, that's not fair in other teams. And this has been brought up for years and years. And I think when we're trying to sandwich everything in, there's no way you can come through a tough Ulster campaign, then go through a tough group stage, then go to the Super 8s and think that you're as fresh as a team that's cruised through. And listen, I'm not crying about Ulster or anything. I'm just saying, physically, that's not fair. So, listen, I don't see how the provincials can keep going there if we're really going to fit this into our season and keep the league.
No, I agree with you 100%. I did want to ask you about going to Togo. You tell us a little bit about this. You work with Plan International, but it's not like a lot of people kind of do a little bit here and there. You've been kind of properly committed to this now for a number of years. What's going on?
I just trying to help out, Jerry. It's one of them things. Listen, we've all different mindsets and looking at things, and I think it's an Irish thing. I look around, Irish people are so willing to help. Sometimes the avenue to help doesn't really pop up. I see it here with neighbours or people, and you look at it like there's so much goodwill, and I would say per head, we're probably one of the biggest donators in the world, to charities and helping out people and that. And in the world at the minute, it's just as you see here, things are getting worse and worse. For years I had to be direct debits to different charities, and you do your wee tracker thing at Christmas instead of Christmas gifts, and I just think that was the way to do it. And then I thought, how can I help a bit more, and how can I see something that's like tangible? What am I doing here? Because listen, don't get me wrong, all the charities doing great work, but you're giving them money. I don't really know what they're doing with it exactly. So I started to think, how can I just help and see? So to sponsor a child, so I started sponsoring kids, and then I sponsored another one, and it's €22 a month. And I started looking at ways to help Plan then, and I got talking to the Plan people, and they asked to come on board and help out. So if you're like me, and I'm sure like everybody else, I wax the wages every month. You know what I mean? First week it's high-end shopping, and by the last week it's discount stores. So I hate asking people for money, and I've always had a problem with that. When a club's selling tickets, I'm like, no. But anyway, so I was looking at wee ways. So I did fast a day, sponsor a child. So you fast a day or fast 2 half days, whatever you can. You save the €22. You sponsor the child. You sign up the Plan. They send you a pack. So you see that wee kid growing up, and Plan more look at girls, but they do boys, because girls are under more danger in the world from early childhood marriage, lack of education, the horrors of FGM and that. So you've got all these things against girls. I grew up in a house of girls, so that's kind of what took me towards plan a bit there. So be things like washing the cars. And, I have the wee pictures of the kids there, and I tell them that's why we're washing the cars. You see a 14-year-old, you're well on your way to €22 in the month and that. So I did a charity ball then last year, where we supported Cancer Care West Focus Ireland, but we sponsored 21 kids on the night as well. So that I really wanted to do something big for Plan to help as many kids as possible. So thanks to the generosity here of people in Donegal and around the whole area, people came from all over the country to the ball and that. So this trip come up then. So myself and Carol Wickham from Plan is going, thank God, because she set everything up. I had no idea this was complicated. Visas and forms and oh my God. So she set everything up. Fair play there. She's a star. And Bradis O'Donnell, Bradis will do a lot of GA coverage there. He's coming with us to document the trip. So it's coming up now in the next lot of days.
So you're going to Togo?
Togo, yeah. It's West Africa there. It's near Burkina Faso and Benin, and it's 8 million people. Most of them live below the poverty lines there. It's mostly agriculture. Half the population are under 18. So it's going to be a tough place. But listen, there's always a lot of joy in the people out here, and that's why the kids and that now, you're a parent, I have 3 sons and I've a wee baby in the way, and you're always trying to centre them a wee bit. Kids have loads of more devices, stuff as they get older, in particular, phones, and they have a lot more things to deal with probably in kids. Maybe when I was growing up, but they have a lot more luxuries, and I know, listen, don't get me wrong, as I say, Ger, everybody gets a wee bit tough, but really, you're on about the basics of the world out there, you're on about sanitation and running water and things like that we just think, right, that's normal. Electricity, that isn't normal for loads of people out there. So going out there to see and meet some of the kids that are sponsored, like I have their wee packs upstairs, they're in my office, the pictures are up there, Ger. So I'm not sure how it's going to be when I go to meet them, because it'll be strange, it'll be very heartwarming and humbling, but obviously last year, tragedy in my own family, losing my dad and my sister. So my emotions are a bit rocky, to say the least. So I wonder how that'll be,
If anybody wants to support you, Brendan, and Plan International, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, you can sign up at Plan, which this is what it's all about. I did a wee post on social media there last day, and I got 3 people that I know of obviously contacted me directly, asked me for the details. They wanted to do it and share it with their kids and all that there, So if you can't go on plan.ie, it's very simple to sign up. If you take their number there, it's on their site. They'll phone you straight back. You can sign up in minutes. So that's where it's at there. Obviously, I'm very lucky here, because this trip, obviously, I didn't want to take any money from Plan. I'm here to help them. So Terry McNuff at the Mount Eric Hotel, Kieran Brogan at Sister Sarah's bar restaurant in Letterkenny here, and my friend Kieran Keaveney and Fifth and Mad Bar in New York, they sponsored the trip, so they've paid for us to go. So it's phenomenal journey of these people in the background, and
but they're only in the background because they know your energy, and you've brought the energy, and that's the bit I think that getting involved with tragedy is always, getting involved with charity is always complicated, because people feel like, you're only doing it for your own benefit. But of course there is a benefit. There has to be, because that inspires people. But also, it's not just that anymore. American philanthropy tends to be rich people buying off the guilt they have for making their money the way they did and not paying any taxes. Whereas, the point about Irish people trying to help is, it's I don't know. I'm also interested in your own kids, trying to centre them. Is it working? Because one of the things that we experience on Dadcast is a lot of parents going, my children are very ungrateful for all the great things that they have in their lives. I'm asking for advice here, Brendan. Does this work?
Well, listen, I try. I suppose my job in that, listen, I work with Larson Building Products, and I do sales, and I obviously do bits and pieces of media and that. So I think that only comes from a wee bit of, listen, we're all different, Ger. You have a good sense of awareness, and I'm like a big kid with my kid. you want to see my house here, Ger, it's a play zone, you know, and I don't, again, it's more through wee bit of imagination, you know, and I'm always thinking of ways of having fun with them and that. So I see in them that create the fun, you know, and even when we have nieces and nephews, I hate the thing where we give them, like the money's gone up, you know, maybe a confirmation of Holy Communion or birthday, and Trass is like, you need my wife, you need to put in this. I'm like, what? Are you saying? What are you talking about? Is this, what? So, no, I'm going to take them away. I'm going to take them to the park. I'm going to take them to the forest. I said, I don't want to be giving them money. I said, what's that for? What are you going to do? Buy sweets? There's sweets everywhere. You know, I'm always saying to myself, right, how do you spend a bit of time with them? And I looked at wee things that they'll remember in their life, and we're lucky, Ger, because Trass is from Gidor, and we be down there quite a bit. The kids be down there nearly the whole summer on the beach, and there's, you know, fun, free fun, and how you have it, and how you know, they let the kids enjoy that. That's where the reality is in life. And yeah, you mentioned trying to buy people off, say buy things. I always find that the natural way, like camping, I take the kids camping. I camp out in Gold Island with my son there a few times, and an absolutely phenomenal thing to do, you know. And I think those things are way ahead of any trip or anything. And sometimes I feel, even when you go on holidays there, it's a wee bit packaged, you know, around time and what you're doing and here and there. Like, I think I can find in Ireland here, see, taking your kids on wee trips that are different, that are in nature and out and about. I think that's where the real joy is. And again, being Irish, yeah, we're absolutely blessed. And I just hear so much negativity coming through. And I know the bad story sells and all that, but we live in an unbelievable country here in terms of amenities and where we can go and things to visit that are, you know, we can take your kids and that, and that's where the joy is. And funny news, Doc, I was hearing about people saying about regretting having kids and that, and I'm like, oh, come on, you know, society, where are we going? Like, you know, you, there's a time in your life you don't want kids because you're going buck mad, as you know we were back in the day, and that's fine. And then there's the other part of your life where you have the joy of your kids and living through them. And I say, I'm like their bloody buddy at times and that, and when we lad come on the last day and he says, Mommy was for hugs and Daddy's for fun, which Trass wasn't too happy, but she goes, I'm fun as well, which of course she is, but the fun you have with the wee ones, listen, at times it's full on, don't get me wrong, you know, you get down there, you get them to bed every evening. I'm trying not to open a beer, right, to relax without having a beer, because life is hectic, but I wouldn't swap it for anything. And I think, we got to remember, again, going back to the kids, the amount of things we have in life, and people get into a bad mindset because all the stuff on social media and people supposed to be living these great lives, and that nobody is. Nobody's living a great life. You're living your own life. You've got to quantify it and look at the people around you. Look at them in Ireland here, families, friends, the amount of people who help you and are in your life and are ready to be there for you. And don't get tracked into the mindset of, look at this, I want this and I want that. Look at what you have, you know, and look at what's around you and make the best of that. That would be my feeling in life.
Listen, I'm not surprised people want to rally to support you and to help you with the Plan International stuff as well, because your outlook is incredible. It's great to talk to you again, Brendan, and enjoy the trip to Togo. And it does sound like it'll be an emotionally overwhelming experience, but I've no doubt that when we talk to you in the aftermath of that it'll be great too. Thanks a million for joining us.
Really appreciate it, Ger. Thank you.
Gaelic Football and Off the Ball is in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out the hashtag #TheToughest for more.
Gaelic Football on Off the Ball
with AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out hashtag #TheToughest for more.